Yeah, please, Chairman, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Look, it's I don't know, is the Minister going to accept any of the amendments that I put forward, but anyway, that's entirely up to himself and his department. You know, there's obviously the winding down of these people's businesses. You know, there's a lot of expenses and costs going to be incurred by I suppose by the businesses as such. So I suppose they're going to have other professional costs which need to be accounted for, such as necessary legal costs incurred by farmers, and I don't think that these have been accounted for. And in fair, Minister, you did say earlier on that you want to treat these people with respect, but like as I said in my opening statement, they feel very unfairly treated. In these discussions between yourselves, the Department of Agriculture, and the farmers' concerns have not been progressing. So they can't. Nobody can say they're treated with respect when they're progressing. They're actually putting forward suggestions to you, not getting any replies, and that's what we see as progress and treated with respect. I'd ask Minister you may actually reconsider this amendment and you might support the amendment going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairperson. Thanks, Deputy Collins and Deputy Brown. So, listen. I mean, obviously, the objective here is to be reasonable and fair, as I said at the outset, and to ensure that appropriate and fair compensation is for the closure of the farms is provided. The previous amendment of Deputy Collins, as they outlined, there's a full 12-month period covered, both 6 months before the farm closes, 6 months afterwards, which takes in a full year. So again, I think that's a reasonable and fair approach. And the reason I didn't support that amendment, Deputy Collins, as I said, was because what you'd be looking to do is 2 years, indeed a full year before the farm would actually shut. So now, in relation to this particular one here. So we're talking about Section 71D, and so just to outline what's contained in Section 71D first of all. So the section sets out the overarching principles that will govern the compensation payable to poor farmers, and also then to ensure compensation will be payable for income losses, non-income losses, and costs incurred as a direct result of the prohibition. So the amount of compensation for each affected poor farming business is to be determined by an independent assessor to be appointed by the Minister. So the bill contains principles and policies that authorise the Minister to make regulations to specify the income and non-income losses and other costs in respect of which compensation will be payable. Also to assess the basis of the valuation for assessing income and non-income losses, and to provide for financial limits to apply to certain compensation payments where appropriate. The regulations will also provide compensation for the costs involved in disposing of breeding mink, demolition and clean-up costs, indeed accommodating the likes of what Deputy Brown indicated there with regards to asbestos. For payments required to be made to redundant workers, as we dealt with in the previous amendment, for certain professional fees incurred as well in the preparation of the applicant's claim form and in the making of representations to my department relating to the development of this legislation. Finally, the regulations also can also be made under this section to provide for a number of administrative matters, including advance payments to claimants prior to any final determination of their compensation entitlements under this bill, for the appointment of an assessor, a form and content of applications for compensation, information required to be furnished by applicants, and any other matters that are incidental, supplemental and consequential to that. So what Deputy Collins' amendment is seeking is to insert into that an amendment saying that all other reasonable, necessary and consequential costs and losses, so that the totality of the compensation is reasonable and fair. And so just in response to that, the provisions overall that govern the compensation package that will be made available to the poor farmers have been developed with the benefits, Deputy, of expert, independent and objective financial advice. My officials have also engaged with colleagues from other member states and have had the benefit of their experience in developing similar compensation schemes that are to apply to poor farmers in other jurisdictions. My officials have also directly engaged with the poor farmers and their representatives on these provisions, and will continue to engage with them on the specific details of the compensation scheme that will soon be provided for in the regulations. For the present purposes, however, I am very confident that the overarching loss categories provided for in this bill are sufficient to ensure that a fair and reasonable compensation package can be made available to the four farming businesses impacted, and therefore I don't propose to accept the amendment. And also just to say, listen, in relation, there's been a lot of engagement. Indeed, I've met the four farmers affected previously on at least a couple of occasions myself, and also there's been ongoing engagement with officials too, and that will continue. And certainly we are absolutely open to all further correspondence and indeed to meeting them as appropriate as well. And indeed, I will meet them as appropriate too in the time ahead to discuss any further issues they have in relation to the bill. But there's been really comprehensive and ongoing engagement with the farmers and my officials. Thanks, Chairperson.